Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Cynthia Howard, and this is our Tuesday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time live. And I'm going to be doing a short webinar, 20, 30 minutes on the future of work. I'm calling it the Future of Work Survival Guide. Recently, I have done a deep dive into AI because it's here. We need to learn how to partner with it. My experience is as a psychologist, so I understand systems and processes, but also I have a black belt in Lean Six Sigma and have worked for many decades actually in performance improvement, looking at workflows, looking at data, understanding the dynamics of how work gets done within teams and with different types of leadership. So AI is a natural segue for me in my career. And while initially I was not sure how to think about it because it drastically changes everything, I have had the phrase think different, work smart for many years now because I know that we have to think different about work. We're all on the heels of the Great Disruption, which happened in 2019. Since then, the workplace has never been the same. There are a lot of reasons for that. So basically, let's take a look at what's shifting at work. First of all, automation has been there for a while. AI has been there for about a year. Most people are thinking about generative AI. We're now into agentic AI. There are actually four types of AI. The reactive machines, that's the one that is most frequently used. It doesn't really have a memory and it's designed for specific tasks. Okay. Then there's limited memory AI, and that would be for the self-driving cars and virtual assistants and other types of tasks. That is in use. The first two are in use today. What's coming down the road is the theory of mind AI, and that's the future AI that understands human emotions, beliefs, and intentions. Okay, so that is coming. And right behind that is the self-aware AI, which is a fully autonomous system that can make ethical decisions and raise philosophical questions, meaning it is going to mimic a human being. So it's important to keep this in mind. Right now, we have language models which are statistically based. There are a lot of gaps in that data because what you put in is what you get out. And AI itself does not play well with incomplete information. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So what's shifting at work is the introduction of more automation, more AI. But what's also shifting is this gig economy and remote work. Corporations have not been successful in bringing people back into the office because they understand that they value their freedom and there's a lot more they can do if they have some remote flexibility. But what is absolutely essential, and it is an imperative, is the need to continuously learn. And why that's important is because AI has already outpaced our ability to keep up. So we're not trying to become an AI bot. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit in this training, but in a group that I'm doing, I'm going to go deeper into that. So this continuous learning means that we have to learn how we think. We have to think about how we think. We have to evaluate our perspective. Are we making the best decisions possible? Is our perspective open and objective? Because it's natural. Our brain naturally has biases, hundreds of biases. And so if we're not careful, we can either feed these biases into AI or we can be tricked by AI to believe that what's coming out of AI is the best output possible. So there are forces that are immediately reshaping our careers. I've heard leaders say that we have 5 years, 10 years. No, we have 5 to 10 months. This is not hyper hysteria, hyperbole. This is truth. Because of the machine learning, the accelerated pace is going to continue to accelerate. So what used to take years to create is now going to take months. What took months is going to take hours. We all have experienced the rapid feedback we get when we put in a prompt and it regurgitates information to us. So we know how fast things can happen. Well, things are going to happen fast in our everyday life because as more and more AI becomes a part of everyday life, like social media, videos, talking heads, is that real or is that AI? That's going to cause an internal conflict, which is going to set up some cognitive dissonance, meaning the inability to decide what's real and what isn't real is going to cause our ability to learn to be more difficult. So, all of this is important to consider. And I just want you to understand that the most successful person in this AI driven world are not going to be those who know all the details. They're not going to have all the facts anymore. They're not going to be able to regurgitate the history and the research. Now, I admit I used to be one of those people. I love the fact that my brain could look at research and I could remember it. Well, things have changed. So those who truly excel are going to be those who learn, unlearn, and then relearn. Because most of what we've learned about what it takes to be successful, we're going to have to unlearn. So the most successful leader is not the strongest, the one with all the answers, because AI can get you those answers. But what is going to be important is, are you going to be able to do something with the answers that AI spits out? Are you going to be able to feed back into AI the right kind of prompts, the right kind of questions, the right kind of data and commentary so that AI can bring back to you a refined answer to what you're asking for. For example, in recent research, the machine learning was found to go off track very easily when too much social media was put in there. And that's because the information coming off of social media is not coherent. There's not a thread because the machines are statistical, meaning they need to compare text to text. They need to look for patterns. They need to look for consistencies. There's a lot of inconsistencies. And so a term that you probably are going to hear more of is brain rot. So the social media input into AI causes those machines to go off track and cause brain rot. Well, what do you think it's doing to us? So when we add AI on top of a brain that's already sluggish, we really do need to know how to use it. Otherwise, we're going to get used up by it. So the skills that I think are super important. Now, I have a PhD. I highly value academics and I highly value learning. I'm constantly reading and learning and researching and digging into the deeper levels of information. So I'm not saying that don't get that MBA or don't get that other degree, but what is really going to make your life and your career more successful is your ability to adapt. Can you be agile? Can you make decisions, good decisions? Can you maintain your perspective? Can you navigate change? Because if we thought change was happening quickly a year ago, it's going to accelerate 3 to 10 times that, particularly as AI continues to improve and the more advanced uses of AI comes out. The art of learning. How do you learn? Most adults learn through reflection. We do something, we think about it, we learn from how we think about it. But can you learn fast? And can you unlearn what you learn? One of the things that I've been pondering recently is the organizational structure of most organizations. It is outdated. The org structure that we are currently operating under happened back in the 40s and 50s when there was one telephone per 50 people. And data, things didn't change 30 days, 45 days. You could operate on that type of calendar. Today, we're looking at hours, days, maybe a month. So companies need to be able to react, respond, but even more importantly, they need to be able to intelligently know where their gaps are and how they can close those gaps. And that's where AI comes in and can provide a valuable partnership. But you have to be able to think about AI differently. Most people think about AI as how can I automate this? How can I make things more fast? How can I make things more efficient? Well, what ends up happening is the degree or the measure of efficiency may not be accurate. So you might be speeding up a process, which is very helpful in the short term, but it may degrade long-term results. Here's a really simple example of that. So a lot of people are using AI to answer emails. In fact, they'll just throw their assistant at that inbox and just say, answer my emails. Well, what research has found is that people are now getting more emails. Why? Because the quality of the communication that's coming back from the AI bots is very poor. So there's less understanding. So my tip to you is stop using AI for emails. You've used it enough where you probably have a few templates. Put those templates in your Outlook or your Google, pull up that template, tweak it for using your own brain for that situation, and find a new way to reduce your inbox. Reducing the inbox by automating the response has only had the opposite effect. It's only increased the number of emails. And that same thing is happening on many levels with processes that people have tried to upgrade, so to speak, only to find out that it degraded the workflow and the outcomes in the long run. So the third pillar is the emotional intelligence. You know, our brains are not designed to process gigabytes of information. They will crash. And what research has found is the more scrolling people do, the weaker their memory is, the less they learn, and the dumber we actually get. So that's why AI can be very threatening because it appears to be smarter than we are. Well, the ability to collate large amounts of data is absolutely tremendous, but it's not the end and be all. It's not what's going to make the difference. And I'll talk about some research in a minute. So, emotional intelligence is your ability to maintain a level of perspective, a high level of perspective in the middle of more uncertainty, huge distraction, even more now than before, just in the last year. And the personality or the internal conflict that comes up, all of the different emotional cues and triggers that we're all going to experience more and more as AI creates ripple effects of anxiety and fear. So, emotional intelligence is your ability to stay calm, to be able to make good decisions, and stay out of that stress mode. Because when your brain triggers that survival instinct, fight or flight, boom, your ability to think deeply and wide goes away. You're thinking two things. Do I fight or do I flee? And that is not high level thinking. So your ability to maintain high level thinking so you can make good decisions, know how to use AI, interact with your colleagues, your customers, your stakeholders, the board members is critical. So how do you cultivate this resilient mindset? Because that's really what we're talking about. And in my early days, as my first career was as a nurse, I worked in shock trauma. I understood stress. I mean, we literally had seconds sometimes to save a person's life before some major consequences happened. The brain can only go without oxygen for a few minutes. The heart, the tissues, everything requires airway, breathing, circulation. It needs a certain level of activity. So we had minutes and we had teams. So 4, 5, 6 people would work on one patient. Everybody had their job. Everybody did that job. And in a way, that's could be a good analogy for how we want to think about AI. The AI becomes a partner for us when we use it effectively. Otherwise, it can be a major distraction. So resilience is that ability to keep going. It intersects with emotional intelligence, but it's that grit, that persistence. It's a level of perspective that's forward thinking, that says things might be tough, but I got this. AI can be extremely useful in getting leaders, businesses, individuals out of jams because it can do research. It can identify patterns or trends. It can look at some of the issues and help you figure it out. But you have to know how to use the prompts, how to access that information. Because whatever you put into AI is the quality of what you get back. And most people are not using AI optimally. Okay. So your ability to embrace challenges, persist, work smart, and I did write the book on work smart. It's called the Work Smart Principle. And I just revised it to include some AI enhanced perspectives because, for example, how we prioritize has to change. How we set goals has to change because of the integration of AI. And so that is in the book. But what I want to say is work is the effort that we put into something. Smart is our ability to leverage our experience, our expertise, but also now AI so that together we're actually amplifying our impact. And then again, being coachable. This is absolutely critical. Now, I have worked for decades with thousands of people, leaders, business owners, high achievers, and this coachability factor has always been challenging because the more successful you are, the higher up you go in the leadership ladder, particularly at the C-suite, that coachability becomes very low. And in the old days, meaning a year ago, that was okay because your strength, your decisiveness, your strategic um, expertise, and your strategic power was what made the difference. But today, because the competition is already using systems in AI that are partnering with that strategic prowess, and they are way ahead of you. And there's no way to catch up if you spend too much time in the I got this, I know how to do it mindset. Okay. And then, of course, part of resilience is reaching a hand out to other people and inspiring them or lifting them up or bringing them along so that people can learn together because learning is what the human has to do in order to get the most out of AI. So when you think about your career, And I've done other videos on career navigation. Go to the YouTube channel at Real Talk Podcast on YouTube. The upskilling and reskilling is critical. But what I'm talking about are micro skills, because the average skill, let's say problem solving, strategic planning, they have about a 2-year shelf life. Okay. Even Lean Six Sigma, which is a fantastic process, it's been used worldwide, millions of people use it. It also needs to change in the midst of AI. Okay. So the upskilling and reskilling have to do with things like resilience. Is my thinking adaptable? And it's called metacognition. How am I thinking about my thinking? Am I taking feedback either from the environment? Am I learning from AI, or am I just leaning on it to get my work done? I can promise you that if you're leaning on AI, it will bite you in the end. And here's why. Research has found that people that use AI regularly dumb down to the point where they are less qualified than before they started using AI. And that came out of a study with medical doctors who, I mean, AI and medicine, that's one of the greatest uses of it. Okay. Because you can collate large amounts of data, find these rare diseases, come up with treatment plans. But the physicians, the nurses, the other healthcare professionals that exclusively used AI to diagnose, to organize their thoughts, were less capable when they took AI away. Another study has been done about the GPS, the use of GPS, which we all have. Now, I am definitely direction challenged. It's really hard and frustrating, so I love GPS. But what I've started doing is not using it if I know where I'm going. I'm not just turning it on all the time. And the reason is research found that one of the contributors to the increase in Alzheimer's is the fact that things like GPS have shrunk our memory capacity in our brain and destroyed our frontal lobe's ability to learn. So our reliance on the calculator, on GPS, and now AI, the internet, social media, it is dumbing us down to the point where our brains are flabby. So I recommend downtime, technology, digital detox, so to speak. Have some free zones where you're not on your phone, you're not looking at a screen, you're outside, you're in nature. All those things that we have learned about keeping our energy up, strengthening our physical and emotional bodies, like exercise, prayer, music, dance, mindful attention. All of that is absolutely critical now, because the more we rely on the constant incoming data, the dumber we actually get. So use your time off screen and build alliances, build those networks outside of your normal flow. Let's say you're in HR. Start going to some operations conferences. Start talking to people in the marketing department. Get out of your silo and build alliances. And then this is my personal favorite, personal branding. And that's because our power lies in us taking advantage of what we can control. And what we can control most of the time is us, how we react, how we respond to people, places, and situations. And so I do actually have a fantastic workshop on personal branding, and I'll put that information out there for you. But personal branding is understanding and communicating your unique value, your strengths, and what you bring to the table. So AI should make us better when we're using it and better when we turn it off. There's anything I want you to get from this today, it's this, okay? We're not just leaning on AI. That's the wrong way to think about it. AI makes everything faster. No, we can use AI to learn. And in the focus group that is going to be launching at the end of March, excellent opportunity to get on board, to deepen your skills in AI, and to really start to master this tool. So it's important to leverage this technology. We talked about leverage as the smart aspect of working smart. You put effort in, but then you have to leverage your experience, your expertise, and technology. So AI is the co-pilot. It's a tool. It is not the answer. If you're thinking of AI as the way to cut costs by eliminating certain jobs, that will have a short-term gain, but it will have drastic long-term consequences. And again, there's huge research that bears that out. And there's some common sense that's going to also be a part of this because a machine is still a machine. You know, human beings, we have a worldview. We have our life experience. We have culture. We have community. When we interact with each other, we learn about other people's culture, other people's community. AI, as it exists right now, is a statistical model. It basically has text and it compares text to text to text. Now, it works on a grand scale, but it's still limited. It doesn't have a worldview. So if you're thinking AI is going to replace people, it may replace certain jobs and it may streamline, it will definitely streamline your workflow and your processes, but people are going to be necessary. And this is one of the issues that AI is doing, and that is highlighting the organizational deficiencies in workflow and data management and people management. And that's what happened in COVID and why people are not going back to the office because the office is toxic, okay? Because managers were not treating people like human beings because there were a lot of issues with how people and information and data is being managed. People were doing things just because they had done them that way for 30 years. Those days are definitely over. So if you want to be an impactful leader that makes a difference, your own performance is what's going to matter. So you're going to need to learn how to learn and unlearn and relearn and be willing to look at things differently. So AI is definitely a tool, but it is not the answer. Okay, it's the hybrid intelligence that is going to dominate, meaning the human intelligence with the artificial intelligence together, but knowing how to do that together. It's not just a matter of tell me about metacognition, for example. Yeah, that might be a prompt you put in there and you're going to get a regurgitation of high level information. But there are other ways and better ways to prompt that I want to show you in this 5-week focus group. So we have advantage as long as we don't get chewed up and spit up by AI, meaning as long as we don't let ourselves dumb down as a result of this information overload. The process has already happened with social media. Social media has changed our brains. When we throw AI into social media and people can't figure out what's real and what isn't real, that's going to really put a wrench in the whole thing and increase the amount of anxiety, the internal conflict, because we're going to be second guessing. So if you know your strengths and you know what problems you solve and you know what you're good at and you know who you are as a person and your faith keeps you strong, then you will not be impacted as negatively with this information overload and acceleration that is happening with AI. So the future of work, we went through it. You be adaptable, change constantly. Okay. It doesn't mean you have to buy everything that comes down the pike, but you do need to be able to adapt. For example, I heard someone say recently that they were asked to work in a different department and it was creating a lot of angst for them because their hours were different. They had to change their whole family structure. But in the long run, she said, you know what? This is the best thing for me because I want to keep learning how to learn. Now, that's an attitude that you want to adopt. Understand what skills as a human make you relevant. Okay. Crunching all the data, being the strategic guru isn't necessarily what's going to get you to rule in your next phase of life, career, business. But if you can partner with AI and have that hybrid intelligence and develop systems, not just efficient systems, but systems that think ahead, systems that fill in the gap even before there's a gap. Now you have a form of intelligence that is going to keep you ahead of the curve. So that's how you really want to think differently. So the website is here. My handle on LinkedIn at Dr. Cynthia Howard, also on X, Instagram. Our Facebook page is Work Smart Club. So I look forward to hearing from you. I will be posting more about this, and I'm very excited to introduce this group, which is going to be starting March 24th. The link is there. I will put some QR codes that you can scan, but this is going to be a high value, fast moving, but value packed group that's going to give you what you need to know about AI so that right now you can get past using AI just for emails or just for your meeting transcripts. But we're also going to be talking about the human element, and you're going to learn about micro hacks for your own brain and for your own system so that you don't crash and burn and you don't get dumbed down by the machines. So this has been a great opportunity to explain more about what we're moving into and how our world is changing. And I want to hear what you think about in the comments. If you have any questions, you want coaching, you want to sign up for this group, reach out and take charge of your life. In the meantime, stay focused and stay energized.